telling you what, he came a foot out of the water just to make it. Uh-oh, hold on.
This week on Kentucky Afield, James Denton has spent a lifetime hunting and fishing, and even at 85 years old, he hasn't slowed down yet.
There we go.
Next, to be the best fisherman possible, you've got to know how to use your equipment.
The 5 casts that I use most frequently when throwing a baitcaster.
It's Baitcaster 101. Then, Betty Perry loves to introduce youngsters to fishing.
He said, would you help me do a fishing event for kids? I said, yeah.
It's all next on Kentucky Afield.
Such a pretty fish.
Beautiful.
This pond is plumb loaded with frogs.
They're everywhere in here. Yeah, this is a good fish right here. Really good fish.
Come here, girl.
Yeah, boy. That's a big rabbit.
Nice job. Yes! Yes! My first muskie. Mercy Leo!
Yeah, look at it's a keeper.
Here it goes! Boom!
Wow, that happened fast.
Hello, and welcome to Kentucky Afield. I'm your host, Chad Miles. Join us as we journey the Commonwealth in search of outdoor adventure. I've been inspired many times in this job, and for those of us who have hunted and fished our entire lives, age truly has no boundaries.
I bought it in 1985.
1985. Is that the original motor?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've had it rebuilt one time.
Okay. And you're a man that spends a lot of time on the water, so thing's got some irons on it.
Been a many a fish put in here.
Oh, I can imagine. There we go. Looks like you got a pop-R on there as well.
Yeah.
So where would you like me to stand? It's right here work for you?
Well, if it works for you.
It works for me.
Okay.
I can work the outside edge, you can work the inside edge. That way we won't have to worry about hooking one another.
I just don't want to hook you.
No, I understand. Uh-oh.
There, you got him.
It's a spot.
Little Kentucky. Isn't it?
Sure is. I tell you what, this is the size on these super sharp hooks. You gotta watch out, they'll hook you. Little spotted bass, you can tell. Get a belly on that joker. Little 10-inch fish. He's trying to be big. He thinks he's big. Try to get another one. Whoa. You see that?
Yeah, that's a jump there. Well, pretty good sized fish.
Here we go.
Get him hooked?
Yeah. A little better fish this time. Thought it might be a hybrid. It's actually not. It's just a largemouth.
A largemouth, what do you say?
A little better fish.
A dead one right there. That's a big old crappie. Oh.
What?
Well, I thought he was dead.
What, did he have something in his belly?
He'd have weighed close to 2 pounds.
Oh, here we go.
There you got him.
Get out of that trolling motor.
Well, that's another decent fish.
Yeah. This thing's
How about
aggressive.
that?
I'm telling you what, he came a foot out of the water just to make it. Uh-oh, hold on. Hold on. We're good.
What's going to happen here in a minute?
That was my fault. I stepped down here to try to get this thing in the boat. There we go. So, Mr. Denton, obviously I know you love to small game hunt. We've been on a rabbit hunt together before. And I know you loved bass fish, but you hold the unique distinction of maybe killing the very first archery deer in the state of Kentucky.
Right.
Because it was the very opening morning of the very first day of the very first archery season,
Yeah.
right?
I watched the deer about every day till season come in. In the morning of the season, it was real foggy. I was on the deer trail, hoping a deer would come along, you know. And of course, sure enough, well, here this, it was a spike. Here he come. So I waited till he got down there and I said, well, I'm gonna shoot him in the belly because that's the biggest part of him. And when I turned that arrow loose, well, It went through his neck and cut that jugular vein there, and he run about 50 yards and went down. And of course, as soon as he went down, I went after him. That was just one of many deer. I killed 35
Is that right?
before I quit hunting. That was with bow and gun both.
Did you get you a turkey this spring?
Yeah, got one opening morning, but I didn't get my second bird.
No.
That's the first year I've missed killing two in a long time. I shot one 10, 12 years ago one morning. I was hunting out of a little old place called Keno outside of Glasgow. And I shot the bird, didn't kill him, and he took off flying. I watched him. He went right off over his heel, and then he just went down just like that. I said, well, that's where I'll find him right there. So I went over there, and sure enough, there he was standing, not laying, but standing on one foot. He had this foot up like this and standing there on one foot, looking straight down at the ground. Well, I walked right up there to him, close to me to you, and I thought, well, shoot, ain't no use of letting him suffer. I better get him out of his misery. So I just backed off, took my shotgun and made like it was a baseball bat. I come back and I whopped him upside the head right there as hard as I could. And when I did, he went and flew off. Got away. I was so dumbfounded, I didn't even try to take us another shot at it. I couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, I whopped him as hard as,
Oh my goodness.
Hey boy.
Oh, you're going with a lizard.
I'll get one of these wizards out of here.
Yep. There we go.
I can't believe it.
We got a fish on. It looks like a pretty decent fish. The lizard come through.
It finally come through.
There you go. Let me get the net.
No, I'll just lift him over.
All right.
Whoa,
He's a strong joker, isn't he?
he's got plenty of power.
There you go. Nice job.
Caught one. Can't believe it. My first bass. I lived in Park City. I went to this pond, and the first cast, I was going to really throw it out there. And of course, got the office backlash everywhere. So I was there trying to pick that thing out and moving that little jitterbug out there a little bit. And there's a 5-pound bass come up and got it.
Really?
My first bass, 5-pounder. I got him in there, and I got on that bicycle and I flew to Park City. And I couldn't wait to show everybody in town. That ruined me right there.
Hadn't quit fishing since.
No.
Well, Mr. Denton, I can't thank you enough for bringing me out here.
Oh, my privilege.
I tell you,
I've really enjoyed it.
I have too, and I always, every time I come out with someone that's got as much experience in the boat as yourself, first off, I always learn something. And secondly, I'll tell you, you're very inspirational. I hope that I am taking my own boat out and fishing 3 or 4 days a week, just like you when I'm your age. You're still running beagles and small game hunting and fishing a few days a week. I know you like the frog gig, and
Oh, yeah.
you stay active, and that's why you're in such good shape.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing the boat with me and your
Yes,
stories.
sir. Really enjoyed it.
It's been a great time. Caught a few fish and had a great time.
Me too. Me
Thank
too.
you. So I'm here with Olivia Dangler, and you're with R3.
Yes.
What is R3?
R3 stands for Recruitment, Retention, Reactivation in adults and in youth. So we're trying to get more and more people involved in the outdoors and keep them involved too in the sport.
So it's hunting, fishing, kayaking.
Hunting, fishing, anything outdoors, hiking, to just kayaking and paddling too.
For many generations in the past, you always got into the outdoors because someone in your family or a neighbor did that. But it's getting harder and harder to find a person that will take you out and be your mentor, right?
Exactly right. Times are changing and less people are learning from their family. They're learning from other mentors too. So having new programs like Become an Outdoor Woman, Field of Fork, and Hook and Cook can help add people into hunting and fishing in the outdoors.
So I spent a little bit of time with Becoming an Outdoor Woman, but tell me what that program's all about.
Becoming an Outdoors Woman, it's for participants 18 years and up, primarily for females, but they learn hunting, fishing, and anything in the outdoors.
And then Field to Fork?
Field to Fork, exactly what it sounds like, where adults 18 years and up who may never had hunted before or have hunted just a few times can learn more about the featured species. Those workshops are usually incorporated with a hunt, and the participants are paired with a mentor, a skilled mentor in the field.
Okay, and the third program?
Third program is Hook and Cook,
okay.
Where participants are 16 years and up, and they either have no experience fishing or they want to learn how to process what they catch.
So if you have interest in learning how to hunt or fish, you can go to the department's website and find out what the next step is to becoming successful hunting or fishing.
Yeah, exactly right. You can go onto our website, click on the education tab. From there you'll see a drop-down window and it'll say learn to hunt, fish, and shoot. Click on that and you'll see icons for all of our next step programs.
If you're interested in learning to hunt and fish, you're probably not alone. There's
That's
probably
right.
a lot of people out
Yes.
there that are really wanting to learn how to get started just like yourself. So make that first step, click on the website, and learn more information, right?
Exactly right.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for coming
Chad.
in.
You're welcome.
For an angler, getting a new rod and reel will make you feel like a kid on Christmas morning. But learning all the new opportunities that rod and reel offers you, well, that's the truly exciting part. Today we're going to talk about one of my absolute favorite topics, and that is fishing reels. Now this here is your traditional bait casting fishing reel, low profile reel. This is the rod and reel setup that I use on about 80% of all bass fishing. I have friends all the time call me up and say, hey, I want to buy a new rod and reel. What do you recommend? And this is what I'm typically going to recommend if you're not pan fishing. A lot of my friends say, hey, I only throw a spinning reel. And every time I've ever tried to throw a Baitcaster, I've had nothing but problems. What I'm telling you is if you match your rod, your reel, your line, and your lure weight, and they all match, these can be highly, highly efficient tools. And you get way more control out of throwing a Baitcaster than you can ever get out of throwing a spinning reel. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of that later. But first off, if you're just getting into bass fishing, or you've been bass fishing and you don't use a Baitcaster and you're thinking about picking one up, I would go with a 6'6" medium to medium heavy rod, and I'd err to the lighter end of that, and make sure that when you read the rod, it will tell you what weight lure and what weight line to throw on it. And it'll give you a range. This particular one here says 5/16 ounce lure to 3/4 of an ounce. All right, I'm throwing a 5/16 ounce jig right here. It will also tell you the pound test. This says 14 to 20 pound test. On a medium weight rod, this is medium heavy, you're going to get somewhere between 8 to 16 pound. Throw the lightest line that you can to learn how to cast one of these. You'll get more distance and they're easier to throw. Also recommend, I love throwing fluorocarbon line in a situation like this where it's all about touch and feel, but learn how to throw a Baitcaster using monofilament. It's easier to throw, and when you get a bird's nest and you have to take that line out, it's not as hard on your pocketbook. So once you get that set up, there are really two levels of adjustment on these reels other than your drag. And the first one is called your cast control knob. Every single reel manufacturer will have a knob on there that's called your cast control, and it's usually set right here by the crank, real close to the drag. What you want to do is tighten this knob down and then push the button on your reel to allow the line to spool out freely. And as you can see, it's locked down. That is not going anywhere. Once you get it set to that point right there, you want to start opening it up until the bait starts to fall with a bit of a stop and start motion. That means that your reel is now set where you want it to be set. Now, as you become more proficient throwing a Baitcaster, you may find that you want to really open it up and make it really loose and do what they call feathering the line. You're still going to have to feather it when you cast it like this, but you can get more distance by throwing it, casting the rod, and putting your thumb on the line and putting a little bit of tension on it. The second level of adjustment on these reels is called your brake control, and they are located in different areas depending on the brand and the model of reel you're throwing. This one is right here on the bottom, and it has numbers 1 through 5. 5 meaning it's putting the most tension, and it will reduce your backlashes, but it will also reduce your casting distance, 1 being almost completely free. And you'll find those located in different areas, and I'll showcase that here in a little bit. So now I've got my reel set up. We're about ready to start making some casts. Now we're going to demonstrate the 5 casts that I use most frequently when throwing a baitcaster. First off is, the long overhead bomb cast. This is one that you're making in open water. You're trying to make really long casts. Sometimes it might be a crankbait, might be a swim bait, maybe a spinner bait. This is the style of cast that typically you're going to turn the reel over on its side, engage the spool, come straight back over your head, and make a long cast out. Now, as that bait's going out there, you're going to want to keep a little bit of tension on the spool. You can feel the spool spinning under your thumb. And when it gets close to your intended target, about where you want to go, right before it hits the water, you just lightly touch it and hold it, and then you'll switch hands and start your retrieve. Most important thing, and what I see where a lot of people mess up on this, is 1 of 2 things. They either don't match their weight to their lure and their line, or when they go to make the cast, they either don't have enough line hanging down or they have too much line hanging down. You're really looking for somewhere in the range of about 18 to 24 inches. If you don't have enough line hanging down, when you go back to cast, you don't have enough force to load your rod tip to get the distance. And if you have too much line, when you go back to make a cast, you got this long whipping action. You want that bait going as fast as it can, pulling line from the spool and not making a big loop. This is about the distance that you're looking for right here. The biggest mistake I see is where people try to cast too close or too far away. This is also, if you're fishing out of a boat, a really good cast to know, because if you're fishing 2 or 3 people side by side, you're always casting straight behind you and straight out. You don't have to worry about hooking someone. Now let's talk about the next cast. The next cast is a sidearm cast. A sidearm cast, you'll see people a lot of times use it off the front of the boat, or if they're just fishing 2 people, you'll see them make this style of a cast. Kind of come through the side and throw that lure right on out there. On this one, usually your spool is facing straight up and down, as opposed to the overhead cast where you tilt it to the side. But other than that, the distance that you're letting the lure hang down is still really important. This is the kind of cast you're just going to kind of sidearm rip it out there. Exact same thing, I'm feathering it, touching it right when I want it to stop, to keep from any overrun. If I get out in a situation where I'm fishing down a bank and I'm making somewhere in the neighborhood of 25-yard cast, 30-yard cast, this is the cast that I will use quite often at that point in time. Not quite the distance that I'm getting with the overhead cast, but still really effective cast. For our next cast, I'm gonna move to the other side of the boat, and this is a cast I use quite often if I'm casting over the front side of the boat, or if you're fishing from the bank. If you have some trees that are hanging down, this is a really good cast, and I call this my underhand roll cast. And this is a cast where you take the rod and you make a loop and you cast it almost on the plane of the water and you cast it out. This is also the cast that I use when I go to docks and I want to skip a bait. This takes a little bit of practice and you got to get your control just right. It's not a way to start, but if you want to roll a cast out there right on the water level, and you can literally get the bait to skip right up under a dock. Great technique on sunny days for catching largemouth bass. But this underhand roll cast can be really, really effective, and it's also a way on a really windy day to keep the bait low to the water and make accurate casts. If I'm throwing a spinner bait on a windy day, a lot of times this is what I'm throwing. An underhand roll cast is very similar. It starts out like an over the head cast, but you literally roll the bait under and you throw it right to your intended target. Let me demonstrate. You can be very accurate throwing this particular technique. And then what I really like about it is if I'm running the trolling motor and we're fishing this way on a bank and I have other people in the boat, I can cast all day long right over the nose of the boat and not have to worry about anyone to this side of me. Flipping and pitching is a technique that you're going to use to fish very accurately. You want to cast right into a piece of structure in shallow water and not make a big splash. The first technique is what I use for a little bit longer distance, and it's the technique I use the most, and it's called pitching. Now with pitching, the lure typically starts in your hand, and you will literally bend the rod tip a little bit, load it up, and then essentially from there it's an underhand roll cast. Underhand roll it right to your target, feathering your bait, throw it harder than you need to get the bait there, and then you stop it once you're close. I'll show you how to do this. Now, one thing that's really important when you're flipping and pitching is as soon as that bait hits the water, change and engage your drag system, because a lot of times you're pitching right where you think the fish is there, and if it hits as a reaction bite and you go to set the hook before you've engaged your spool and you set the hook, you've got yourself a bird's nest. The last cast I want to show is for the absolute closest, most precise cast, and this is called flipping. Now on flipping, you're literally going to take your rod and you're going to pull some line off of your spool. You're going to gently lay a bait, and on this here, you're usually only casting less than 10 feet. So I'm taking this here and I'm going to gently lay it out there, and then I'm going to engage my spool and I'm going to work a very specific spot. Maybe it's a stump, maybe it's a stick up. If you are still not convinced that a baitcaster is right for you, or you've tried one before and you've not had good results, there is some technology out here that you might want to know about. And this is called DC for digital control. Now, this has a bunch of magnets in there like all the reels do, but what these magnets do is they almost act like an anti-lock braking system on your car. If the spool goes too free, which essentially allows you to get the overrun, this thing will slow it down and will allow you, once you set the reel up like we've done all the others, and we want to add the brake, hit the button, let the slow fall, tune this thing back to around 1 or 2, you can start making casts. You don't even have to touch the spool. I know that sounds crazy. I'm going to demonstrate a cast. I'm going to throw a 40-yard cast. I'm not going to touch the spool in flight, and I'm not going to touch the spool when it hits the water. And watch this. Not one loop, 0 overrun whatsoever. Again, this technology's been out for about 5 or 6 years, but it's just recently been offered in reels that are affordable. Fishing with a baitcaster can add so much additional control and accuracy to your lure presentation. If you do not use a baitcaster, you really need to think about picking one up and giving it a try. We have many people throughout the state of Kentucky that are very interested in getting kids fishing. And Betty Perry, well, she's one of those. What is it about fishing that made you just want to teach kids how to do it?
Well, so many kids run drugs, and you've got them here, and there's nothing in Floyd County for them to do. Rick Eccles said, Betty, he asked me before he left here if, he said, would you help me do a fishing event for kids? I said, yeah. Yeah, this is our 10th year doing the kids event.
10 years. Now tell me a little bit about this. So it's the Floyd County Kids Fishing Day.
Yeah, and we put them in 3 age groups and give them first, second, third prize in each age group. And then at the end of it, the one that catches the overall big fish, they get extra package.
Oh, cool. So it's kind of like it's a friendly competition, but it really is to get kids interested in fishing, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What's the biggest fish you've ever seen a kid catch at that event?
A 10-pound, a little over 10-pound carp.
Okay.
He was a little fella.
He caught a 10-pound carp. He's probably telling that story today.
Oh, yeah.
Poles have been bouncing all day long. We've been sitting up here talking, thinking they're probably bluegill, which I'm sure they are. But sometimes it's not all about just catching fish. It's just about coming out here and sitting here and having fun.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's check in and see who else has been out having fun in this week's Ones That Didn't Get Away. Here we have Mason Chitwood with his first ever deer, a nice spike buck, taken in Hardin County. Congratulations. Check out 6-year-old Paige Wiles as she holds this nice little largemouth bass she caught in Russell County fishing at her grandpa's farm pond. Nice job. Here we have 6-year-old Carter Brown with his first deer ever taken in Russell Springs, Kentucky. This deer was taken during the youth season with a 243. Nice job. Check out this impressive 11-point buck taken by David Boyers of Campbell County, Kentucky. Congratulations. Deer antler growth is near its peak, and if you'd like to run trail cameras to see what type of game you're going to have this year, now's the time to put them out. And remember, hunting and fishing on private property is a privilege. Always ask permission and thank the landowner. Until next week, I'm your host, Chad Miles, and I hope to see you in the woods or on the water.